This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one. But I'll let you lead.
Welcome back. Holy shit.
You want to change? You want to talk it up?
Yeah, dude. We were just sitting here pre-gaming and talking about travel and how busy we are. And man, I slept like 9 hours last night and woke up and felt like I slept an hour. I'm just so exhausted from go. But I will say this, man, that like when I look back at the people I got to engage with this weekend and some of the conversations that I got to have, it was enlightening. Because when I put it in the context of the things that we talk about and, you know, just we kind of throw around this nonchalantly like, well, here at the Be One Change One podcast, we da-da-da-da-da-da, you know,
yeah.
But then when you get out and you know, when you and I are comparing ourselves to each other and Francis and you know, as much as a fuckhead he is sometimes,
love you, Francis.
And some of the other people, you know, but then you go hang out with a different crowd or a different group. You start to realize that not everybody thinks the same way that we do sometimes. And that was enlightening for me.
Yeah. Well, I think we pulled this thread before, but I think we were very fortunate. I mean, one, you know, you needed a lot of self-motivation to even be where we were, but I think we were also very fortunate to have been in that group for as long as we were and to have experienced that, because it
those experiences.
Yeah, because man, it just refines some of those things for you, right? You learn so much about yourself in a process like that where you're competing every day, you know, and you have to have a certain amount of focus and a certain amount of, you know, goal planning and attention to detail, like all of those skills that we talk about trying to build that can really make a difference for people in their lives. Like you're almost forced in that environment to figure those pieces out, even if nobody's teaching them to you specifically, like we try to do on the podcast, right? But you're almost by default learning those things, you know, and you're stress testing yourself, right? You're going after opportunities. You're taking courage over comfort. You know, I mean, how many fucking rides did you go on where you're like, Jesus Christ, I don't feel ready for this. I like, if I could, you know, if I could walk away right now and be Denif and just drink some coffee, I'd feel much better tomorrow, but you do it anyways. Right. And so, you know, you're always pushing that boundary and you're pushing that comfort level and you're forced into the arena. You're forced to go in there and figure out how to perform and how to do well and, you know, how to maximize your potential and all of those types of things.
Yeah.
And I think that was just a very fortunate environment to grow up in, especially for as long as we did it, because it just refined so many of those skills for us, right? We learned so much in that process about ourselves and, you know, what we were capable of, how far we could push and all the things we could do. And so, and most people don't get an opportunity to experience that, I don't think.
Yeah. And that's the point that I was going to piggyback right there was, you know, for us in the careers that we were, and you look at anybody that's part of any kind of elite group, you know, it becomes normalized to the point where you just don't even think about it anymore. Yeah. And
like I never thought of ourselves as an elite group, but we were kind of like high functioning. No, we were a very elite.
We definitely team. Were. I mean, if nothing else, but demographically we were. And then when you look at the types of people that we surround ourselves with, you know, it's just different. When you take a slice out of like normal life, we were different than that. You know, all of us are college educated. All of us do, you know, pretty high level of physical fitness, mental fitness. Like there was so much about the positions that we held that was not normal for most people. And
everybody's pretty,
you know, going and getting to socialize. Yeah. Going and getting to socialize with some people who led in just normal, regular lives, you know, I realized that not everyone had that opportunity that we had, and not everybody was exposed to that kind of stuff. In fact, the Friday night that we were hanging out at this one little bar, and one of the dudes, I've known him for years. Like I said, I mean, Katie started taking me out there in like 98. So, I mean, I've known these guys for nearly 30 years. Anyways, I'm talking to this one dude, and he goes, "Hey, so what made you want to start a podcast?" And I kind of explained this to him. I was like, "Well, Cass and I were just talking about how fortunate we were to get exposed to a lot of this stuff, and what a shame it would be if we went to our grave with all this junk in our minds and didn't put it out there for other people to be able to take advantage of." Something as simple, I mean, just very simply, talking to this one guy, I'm like, "Bro, like, you just have a confidence problem. That's all.
Yeah.
You need some small victories. You get some small victories, and that starts to build your confidence a little bit. So let's start a small goal and start, just start knocking down a couple of dominoes. And once you do, you'll find that you're capable of doing this shit." And it's just a mindset thing, man, that unfortunately, I feel bad that not everybody gets to an opportunity to really, challenge themselves like that on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, some of it's as simple as, just understanding, well, it's self-assessment first, right? Like we were talking about a little bit in the pre-brief, like you were saying, I think at some point or at least most men get to a point in their lives where they're looking in the mirror and they're going, what the fuck am I doing? Like, or how did I even get here? Right? Like maybe you're a little chubby, you're not in shape, you're in a job that you don't really enjoy.
That's the mirror test,
or, you're, maybe at one point you did enjoy what you're doing, but you haven't progressed the way that you wanted to. But maybe that just goes back to, some of the things that we talk about on the podcast, which is you never really realized to be present in the moment and recognize opportunities, or to have the courage to seize opportunities. Maybe you always had an excuse as to why you couldn't do the next thing, or the lackadaisicalness of not getting that certification that you needed to move to the next level because it was too hard, or it wasn't the right time, or I got kids, or whatever the case is, right? And then, like you were talking, for some guys, it may be just as simple as never having any mentorship around goal planning and goal execution and how to do that stuff. It sounds simple, but it's harder than you recognize, right? It's harder in practice than people think it is.
But you get out of high school, you get out of college or whatever, and you're just kind of thrown into real life with not a lot of direction.
Yeah.
Right. And unless you have a group of people around you that are helping motivate and challenge and
mentor
and push and mentor. And, for us too, there was a clearly defined path in front of us.
There was.
It was B course, MQT, flight lead instructor. For some of us, it was WIC, mission commander. Like you can see this. So you can see 10 years out and where you think you need to be. And then it's like getting into, middle management, squadron command, that kind of stuff. So you've always got that horizon out there that you're aiming for. But what if you're just a dude who, maybe you chose, 30 years ago, you chose not to go to college, and you're just thrown out into the real world. And, here you are at your 30-year high school reunion. You look back and you go, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm almost 50 years old, and what do I got? What have I done? I'm just surviving. And man, there's a big difference between thriving and surviving. And a lot of it, dude, I'm convinced after having some of the conversations I did this weekend, I'm convinced it comes down to mindset and self-discipline, just those little things, and like I was talking to this one guy about, he asked me about 75 hard. And so I'm explaining to him the criteria, to complete the program and whatnot. And I said, yeah, I set this, when I did it with Katie, that was my second round. So I wanted to challenge myself a little bit more. And so I threw out a goal of, in 75 days, I wanted to cover 1 million steps. And he goes, oh, well, what's that come out to? I was like, oh, well, that comes out to just over 13,000 per day. He goes, oh, well, that's not that bad. I mean, they recommend 10,000. I was like, yeah, okay. You can do 10,000 steps in one day, but can you do that tomorrow? And can you do it the next day? And can you do it the next day? And can you do it for 75 fucking days straight? And as you could see, the look on his face just changed. I said, see, now that's the difference right there. Is I looked at it and said, fuck yeah. You're looking at it and going, oh, I don't know. That's the difference, right? Is when you look at challenges like and there's this really cool Ryan Holiday has this really cool book, and it's called The Obstacle is the Way, and it's based on some Marcus Aurelius quotes that he had. But when you that's the difference between guys like us who have been challenged and been pushed, and you're pushed so far out of your comfort zone that you kind of get to this point. Some people call it cockiness, we call it confidence, where you look at a problem, there's no fucking problem that we can't solve. Everything is solvable, everything is doable. Even if you don't have all the answers, you're still going to go, right? Versus a guy who's never been pushed, never been challenged, and they see that as daunting and like, oh fuck, I could never climb that
Yeah.
hill. Well, yeah,
No.
you can, man. And you do it one fucking step at a time.
Yeah. Well, that's I think what's really important about what you're saying there, Roscoe, is like if you don't know how to break some of these things down so that you can break it down into sizable chunks that make it executable, something can feel very overwhelming, right? And I'd imagine like something like 75 hard for maybe somebody who lacks some self-discipline or has never really thought through a process like that. It could feel really overwhelming because like you're saying,
Yeah.
you're going, oh, 13,000 steps a day. That's not that big of a deal. But then you go, oh, but what about, I usually just sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and watch NASCAR on Sunday. So, and that takes up a good chunk of my,
Hey,
no
careful.
offense.
You cross
No,
a line, motherfucker.
But it's not just the fitness piece of it too, right? It's the diet and the water and there's all these other aspects to it. And all of a sudden now those things start to pile up and that can feel very overwhelming to people.
Well, what do we say, man? We say motivation will get you off the couch today. Discipline will get you off the couch tomorrow, right? So, I'm sitting there having this conversation with this guy. He goes, oh, well, 10,000 steps. That's not that bad. That was doctor recommended anyway. It's like, yeah, for one day, sure. But can you do that every day? Can you do that every day for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Like that's the difference in what we're talking about, and we kind of started this show without a clearly defined topic, but I think I'm working one up here. It's time we kind of revisit some of the shit that we talked about 100 episodes ago, because it's sort of gotten lost in the sauce after 2 years, right? You have guys, when you're standing there looking at yourself in the mirror and you're going, oh fuck, I have to make some changes. I'm nearly 50. I can't fit into my favorite pair of pants. I haven't walked 10,000 steps in 20 years. Like, I've got work to do, right? It is daunting. But let me tell you, man, you've done the first step, and that is recognizing that you need to change something. Your life is not going to change until you change your life. All right? So, looking at yourself in the mirror, having that revelation that something has got to be different from here out. Okay, great. Now let's start to have the conversation on what those changes need to be. All right. And I will take that back. Cass, you're going to love this. You're going to look a little chubby when I say, let's go back to your personal values. And if you haven't done that exercise, call one of us and we'll go through it with you. Because when you recognize that you need help, and then you see you want this end product, well, there's stuff in between here. And part of that is you got to start living your life. Your actions, your behaviors, and your words need to be in alignment with who you want to be. And what did you say? Brene Brown and all these other people have said, it's not that you have to live them right now. They can be aspiring.
Yeah,
values,
they can be aspirational.
But that comes back to daily action and daily change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, and I think, for people that lack self-discipline, that can be daunting as well, right? But it just starts with the first choice, right? Like, dude, I had a long day today. I get in, I don't want to go to the gym. Like, I like to work out in the mornings. I don't like to work out in the afternoons. I don't feel the same way. I've been sitting in an airplane all day long. Plus, I didn't work out for almost a week just because of the schedule that I ended up getting last week and then having a trip over the weekend, and kind of trying to recover from the travel and all that stuff still. And, everything in my body's like, oh, dude, just, take a shower
rest day.
And finish Andor season 2, but no, right? Part of that is like, I have a choice to make. And my choice was to go to the gym anyways. And I still ran 5 miles and did 20 minutes on the Peloton and then did weights after that because
nice.
But part of that is driven by a goal I have in a time that I want to meet in September when I run my next half, right? And so some of it's having a plan, but it really just comes down to And recognize too that you're not always going to choose the right thing. And that's part of the process, right? You have to learn how to do this over time. You're going to have a day where you're supposed to go do what you're supposed to go do, and you're not going to do it. And then you're going to feel really shitty about it the next day. That's okay, right? Just the next day, make the right choice, Um, it just comes down to choices and trying
So
to get that alignment with whatever that personal value is or that goal may be.
yeah, in a continuation of the same conversation I was having with the guy, and I don't remember if it was before or after, but same sit down with the same dude, and we were talking about exactly what you just said. We were talking about, that what you just did, what you just described, though, Cass, that goes back years, right? It goes back to years ago. You set a foundation of being able to do shit that you didn't want to do
Yeah,
because you had goals that you wanted. And sometimes you got to do the shit you don't want to do to get the things that you want, right?
that's right.
And my example to him was it was it was Friday night. So Friday morning, Katie and I woke up in the hotel, and when Katie and I travel, we each have our routines. All right. Usually we go to bed about the same time. Katie likes to sleep in a little bit longer than I do. So that's my me time when I wake up in the mornings. And before I go to bed, I pack my little backpack and I lay out my gym clothes and everything. And I'm like a fucking ninja when I get up in the mornings, man. I just crack the window just enough so I can have a little bit of light, get dressed, grab my backpack. I'm out the door. Go down, have the hotel coffee, read a little bit, and then go to the gym. And usually by the time that's starting to wrap up, Katie's getting up, and then we'll go maybe have breakfast or something like that. Well, Katie got on Friday morning. I got up, I did all that stuff. I got downstairs, had one cup of coffee, not even finished with one cup of coffee, and here comes Katie downstairs. She goes, "Oh yeah, I'm up." I was like, "Oh fuck, okay." Well, kind of wrecked my plan for the morning. Um, and I had a choice to make. I could have said, "All right, well, you go on upstairs, hang out, veg, take a shower, whatever you're going to do. I'm going to go hit the gym real quick and I'll be up. Give me like 30, 45 minutes. All right, I'll just do something quick and get up there." But instead, I went upstairs with her and we laid there. We watched TV for a little bit. We read for a while. And then the phone starts buzzing and shit. And oh, well, okay, well, we're going to get dressed and go to Laguna Beach. All right, cool. Let's go to Laguna Beach. Right. So we go over there and we day drink for a little bit. And I'm sitting here, it's going on in the back of my mind. I'm going, okay, when we come home from the beach, Katie's going to want to freshen up. She might take a shower. She's definitely going to take 30, 45 minutes to get dressed because we're going out to a bar to meet a bunch of friends later. That's going to be my workout time, right? Katie comes in, puts on a new tank top. She goes, "Okay, I'm ready to go." I was like, "Oh, fuck. All right." So I changed shirts and out the door we go. And guess what? All day Friday, I didn't get my workout in. And I told him that story, and he looks at me and goes, "Well, fuck her. She fucked up your program, and it was her fault." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. It's my fault."
Yeah, personal
Because at any
responsibility.
point along the way, I could have said, "Stop. I need to go do this. This is on
Yeah.
my list of things to do today." And I didn't do that. I made a choice to hang out with her instead of do that. I don't regret it. But that's an example of exactly what you just said, man. Fucking
Yeah,
choices, right?
it is. And, I don't, maybe you have a better way of describing this. I think, and there's probably a book that's like the 6 steps to building self discipline in your life. I
Yeah, it's called
think it,
75 Hard.
well, I think, but that's my point is I think like self discipline can seem like an ethereal thing to some people. And dude, it's just something that you have to start to exercise. It's just a muscle that you have to start to exercise and build. And there's ways to do it. And realize too, like if you want to get in shape and you're not in shape, well, guess what, dude? Like you were saying before, if you want to make changes physically, financially, professionally, like there's going to be some pain up front that you're going to have to go through. There's some work that has to be done. There's no easy path. There's no easy button, regardless of what Staples may tell you, right? There's no like it's going to take work and effort and some dedication to do that. And if you want to build discipline, you've just got to start doing it. I don't know how else to describe it. Maybe you can put it in better context, but like it really just comes down to you've got to start making choices that align with the goal you have or that value you have or that person that you're aspiring to be.
Well, I think ultimately, man, and when I've had the opportunity to coach people up individually, this is kind of where I start is we need to have a discussion about your goals. And then you kind of work backwards from there. Like we used to talk about, you always start at the target and work backwards, right? So what's the target? Your target marathon time. Let's start there and then let's work backwards and let's figure out whether it's flying a tactical sortie in an F-15 or F-16, whether it's coaching football or whether it's knocking out a personal goal. I use that 5 T's construct, man: task, target, threat, tactic, time. And I break everything down into those categories. And I think when I do that, it helps me develop a plan going in. And then it's just a matter of executing the plan, right? Plan, posture, perform, that whole fucking thing. And really, I think where you get the self-discipline right is you have to write that shit down and you have to make it big. And I encourage people to get a whiteboard, a fucking poster, draw it on their mirror and dry erase marker, something, right? Something that reminds you of your goal every day. Hang signs around the house, put a whiteboard on the refrigerator door, whatever it is to remind you of that. For Caleb, going to college, wants to be an F-35 pilot, right? I said, get a poster of an F-35 and tape it to the back of your bedroom door. And every time you walk out in the morning, you slap that fucker like Michigan Wolverines do when they walk out of the locker room. That
Yeah.
reminds you of what your goal is. And so now everything that you do today goes back to that picture, right? And I think where you get the self-discipline, this is just my opinion, it's probably rooted in some science somewhere, but it's the small victories, because those small victories make you feel good and they make you want to do more things, right? And those small victories are just the little dominoes that you knock down, like getting your 10,000 steps in or sticking to your diet for one day. And that's the whole deal with a program like 75 hard. And I mean, some people can do it, some people won't, whatever. But the whole purpose behind a program like that is to get you thinking about the little things in your life, those little 10-minute, 15-minute chunks of your day where you could be doing something else that's oriented towards your goal instead of sitting there dead scrolling on Instagram and doing jack shit.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is I think that there's a reason it's 75 days too, right? Because they say that it's usually 6 to 8 weeks to change something into
Yeah.
a habit. And when
Yeah.
things become habitual, it takes less discipline because it just starts to become part of who you are and the choice that you
That's
make on
right.
a regular basis, right? And so I think for guys that may be struggling with this, recognize too that you're going to fuck it up here and there, especially at the beginning. And that's okay, right? Like failure's our greatest teacher. Like get back on the horse the next day, like make the right choice the next day. It's going to take some time to build those skills and to shift your mindset from what you've been doing for a very long time into where you want to go and what you want to be. It doesn't happen
Well,
overnight.
no, and it's important to note, I think, that one thing I was explaining to these guys is like running a marathon. Okay, running a marathon is a great example. Doing 75 hard is a great example. There's so many of these. Writing a book is an example. But okay, when I'm sitting down to write a book, I don't sit down to write 90,000 words. I sit down to write one sentence.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you have to break it down that small, right? And in a
Yeah.
program like 75 hard, you don't do 75 hard. You don't do 75 days of this program. You do one day, you do it 75 times. And every day you have to look at that day, schedule it out, plan it out, and stick to that plan, right? For 75 days straight. For running a marathon, you don't go out to run 26 miles. You go out to run 1 mile
Yeah.
26 times.
Yeah.
And that's a very different mindset when you go into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, even from everything from training and how you fuel your body and where your
Yeah.
bathroom breaks are going to be, you don't look at it as a 3-hour, 26-mile race. You look at it as, okay, if I can get through this 1 mile, then I'll take a shit. If I make it through the next mile, then I'll take a piss. If I run it through the next mile, that's my hydration station, and that's the way you break these things down.
Yeah. No, you have to break it down into sizable chunks. But I think that the thing that's important to stress that because we use fitness a lot because it's easy to use as an example. But, if you're doing anything fitness related that has a goal attached to it, um, it's just all about training your body to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So, like if you're going to go run any kind of distance, right, you've got to train your body to be able to go for that distance, to go for that time, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up and go, I'm going to go run 13 miles today, unless you're like 20 and super fit or something, right? But you don't, right? You have to build up to it. You have to figure out, like you were saying, you have to figure out your fuel plan and hydration, and there's all these things in pre-race prep, and there's all this stuff that goes into it. Your mind's no different though, right? It's the same thing. You have to
Mhm.
build that endurance for your mind. You have to work on your mind the same way that you work on your body. And it takes time and it takes effort, but as you start to make the right choices over and over and over again towards whatever that goal is that you may have, you start to condition your mind for that type of process. And then, like we said before, once you've done it a few times, it becomes a little bit easier. And now you can kind of open up your aperture a little bit. And maybe the goal that you had, you go through your timeline and you meet it or you come close to it. And then, well, now that's not the place to stop, right? Now you open up your aperture and you go, hey, I did pretty good on this. Let me see if I can go a little further. Let me see if I can do something that's a little bigger. How can I push and then you start to get into this mindset of how you can push yourself, and it can be related to all kinds of different things.
There's so much wrapped up into there, though. I was talking to Buster not too long ago after he did that
We need to have
half
Buster on.
Ironman.
We need to have Buster
And
on.
yeah, I told him when I was talking to him on the phone, I wanted, well, first of all, I told him how much of an inspiration he was to me. What is he, 60 something? And he's
Yeah.
out there doing half
Fucking
Ironman. So
doing.
fuck, dude,
I know.
stop, will you? You're
We
making the
need to
rest of
have
us
him
look
on.
bad, bro. Um, but he was completely humbly honest with himself. He goes, yeah, I didn't perform how I wanted to. I didn't meet my times. I completely bonked on the run because I overdid it on the bike. And, you know, that level of accountability and debrief and humility is what makes you succeed the next time,
Yeah.
and another thing, man, that I think kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit sometimes when we start thinking about, oh, by the way, this shit applies to every facet of your life.
It
If you
does.
want to read a book, you don't sit down and read 700 pages. You read one page over and over and over again, right? And maybe it takes you a month. If you're a speed reader, maybe it takes you a few days or whatever, but it's incremental steps, right? It's the small little baby steps that get you there. When you go hike a mountain, you hike it one step at a time. If you're saving to buy a house, it's $20 at a time, $100 at a time. Like, this stuff isn't going to happen overnight. But the important thing is, don't look back at all the shit that you fucked up in your past, right? Look forward to the things that you're going to do in the future to prevent things like that from happening, right? So we're going to make some small changes. And you know what? A guy like the dude I was talking to this weekend is not going to jump in and go run 3 miles tomorrow, but he can go walk around his neighborhood. He can start there, man.
Yeah,
Brittany
you got to
runs a
start small and
marathon.
build.
Yeah, Brittany runs a marathon. I know I've said that a fuck ton of times on here, but it's a great show about that process where she thought she was just going to go buy some new running shoes and go run a fucking marathon. And she found out by the end of the block that that's not how that shit happens.
Yeah, that's
Right.
not how it
And
works.
there's going to be highs and lows, man. And that's why it's really important to have an accountability partner, somebody to pick you up when you have a bad day, somebody to call you a fat ass when you have the double cold stone, like I did the other night. Thanks, Francis. But it's those little things, man, that, and like, back to your point, your question of like, how do you build it? How do you get there? And I think it's all of these things combined, right? We've all had days where we don't want to do things, where we don't want to perform. You don't want to get off the couch. The NASCAR and the Cheez-Its look really good. It's fucking hot outside. I don't want to go for a run when it's hot outside.
Yeah.
But have an accountability partner to just text me and be like, hey, man, how was your run? Fuck. All right. Better go do my run. I think it's cumulative. I think all those things kind of pile in there together.
Yeah, well, and a good example of that was when we did the Spartan race with Francis, right? We were accountability partners for that process for him. And your accountability partner doesn't even need to be somebody necessarily that's doing what you're doing, right? Sometimes just having the courage to share your goal with somebody close to you so that they can check in with you and help hold you accountable, it works just as well, right? Tell your wife, tell your spouse, tell your significant other, hey, I want to do this and please help me stay on task, right? Hide the Tostitos and the cheesy queso dip, please. Like
Nah,
there's ways that you can affect that.
Tell me, that's good fat, right?
Yeah, sure.
The what is it? The Tostitos white queso?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure
queso
it's good for
blanco.
you. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
good
anything
fat.
that's that heavily processed is really good for you.
Shut up, I'm carb loading. All right. No, I think it's important though. And I was really, I gave the guy a big hug, and I told him I was proud of him for um, having the courage to admit that he needed to make some changes.
Yeah,
And these are
that's
his
where it
words, not
starts.
mine. Like I wasn't being judgmental. I think he's a great guy. He's funny as
No,
shit, and I like
but
hanging out with him.
but
But
that's where it starts, just
I
like you
think he
said.
got to a point where maybe he was looking at himself in the mirror one day, or maybe he was at work or whatever, and he just had this revelation of like, man, like I need to do something different. Something needs to change. I don't know what that something is, but something needs to change. And he had the courage to broach the topic with me, and we kind of started digging into it, man. So I'm really looking forward to energizing that
Yeah,
with
and it
him.
can be something simple too, guys. Like the guy that I've been flying my last couple of trip with is just this amazing individual. And I've just met him a couple weeks ago, and we got to talking, and he shows me this picture that he has. And I don't even recognize it's him. And I look at him and I go, "Who is that?" And it's a picture of a guy in like a pool of water with a waterfall behind him in Hawaii. That's just way overweight. He doesn't have a shirt on. He's got his arms up, and there's just stuff everywhere, right? And he goes, about 9 months ago, we were in Hawaii with some friends, and my friend took a bunch of pictures. He goes, and we got back from the trip, and we sent them all the pictures that we took. They sent us all the pictures that we took. He goes, and I saw that picture of myself, and I was like, holy shit, dude. Like, he goes, I couldn't
Yeah.
stand to look at it. And he was like, I have got to make some changes. Dude's lost 60 pounds. He's about 2 or 3 pounds from being under 200 pounds for like the first time in 25, 30 years. Like just this
Bet it didn't happen
massive,
overnight, did it?
but no, he's been going at it for, like I said, 6 to 9 months, and it took a lot of discipline, and it took a lot of effort, and, some research about how to clean up his diet and what to do for exercise. Cause guess what? When you're that overweight, like the exercise isn't easy either, but man, like just to talk to him now and how good he feels, and he's still got a little bit of weight to lose. Right. But still to talk about how good he feels now, and how much like, he goes, dude, I couldn't even go out and play with my grandkids because I would get winded so fast,
Yeah.
and now he's out. He's like, now I can go out there and I can play all day with them, and so there's these little things that you can change, but it takes effort and discipline, and it takes time. It's not easy, right? But over time, as you make these cumulative changes, you you have all these other outcomes that you didn't even recognize you would have, like playing with the grandkids wasn't the goal, right? The goal was to take
Yeah.
care of himself because he's in his mid to late 50s, and he's killing himself basically. But then as he started to do it, there's all these other things that come from it, the things that he can do with his wife that he couldn't do before, being able to get out in the yard with the grandkids and play all day if he wants to. Like, there's all these other benefits that come from it that he hadn't even realized.
There's all these goofy platitudes out there like today's the first day of the rest of your life, or
Yeah,
it can be
sure.
someday, or what it can be. It can be one day or day one, those kinds of things. But I mean, guys, like reality is, if you want to get started on something like this, start today. Now I'm the kind of guy that if I see something that's like you and I were talking about this thing that I might sign up for, and I'm not committed to it 100% just yet, so I want to let that cat out of the bag. But I'm thinking about signing up for something that's, for me, it's a little bit daunting. And I'm planning it out, and once I get it planned out and I look at it, I'm sure I'm going to be like, yeah, fuck it, let's just do it. But when you're looking at these kinds of changes and whatnot, like I'm the kind of guy who I can just start tomorrow or this afternoon and be like, you know what, I feel like going for, I'm just going to go and I'm going to do it. I ran that White Tanks marathon out here, or half marathon, a couple of years ago. zero training. I saw the ad on a Tuesday, signed up for it, and ran the race on Saturday. That's just me, though. I'm kind of stupid when it comes to shit like that. Katie, she needs a couple of weeks to kind of prepare mentally for going into something that's maybe a little more heavy or a little more challenging or long, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like this long program, she might need a little bit of time to get her mind around everything that she's got to do. But when it comes time to execute, she's going to execute and she'll do it well. Right. So all of those platitudes, they're not wrong. Like, if you want to make changes, don't say, oh, I'll wait till next year, or, oh, I got the class reunion coming up and after that I'll do it. No, man, start now. And you can make a little bit of progress, and even a little progress, it's still progress. It's back to my football analogies. You're not always going to get first downs and touchdowns. Every now and then you're going to lose yardage, but what do? You get back in the huddle and you call your best 2nd and 13 play. And you go try to execute again. And sometimes, those steps that we get knocked backwards are the mental reset that we need every now and then to go, oh, okay, maybe I got lackadaisical. Maybe I just sloughed off just a little bit, and that's that reset that you need to go, okay, let me tighten this back up a little bit. Let me get back on. So I say, in accordance with a lot of those platitudes and dumb sayings that are out there, I say go for it, man. Start now. Start today. Let's go.
Yeah, you're more capable than you think you are. And it may seem daunting and overwhelming, but you're more capable than you think you are. And that's true for all of us. There's things that we all struggle with, but you can work through it. You just have to have a little discipline, set a few goals and start moving forward, and then adjust the game plan as you need to and keep pressing.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it comes down to mindset, right? Define what you want and then figure out a way to get it. And if you want it bad enough, you'll do what it takes.
You'll figure it out.
Well, because ultimately it comes down to, this is where rubber meets pavement, right? We can sit here and we can talk about it and we can plan it and we can do all this shit, but sooner or later you got to fucking put your sneakers on.
Yeah.
You gotta shit or get off the pot. Yeah. And we can sit here and we can talk about mindset training and we can talk about planning and laying out and putting signs around the house and laying out your program step by step by step. But if you never strap your shoes on and walk out the fucking front door, it's not going to happen. So that's, but that's all the way back to the beginning. This is a decision. This is a choice that you have to make. And you have two choices starting right now. Look at yourself in the fucking mirror and you got two choices. You can continue what you're doing and get the same fucking results, or you can change something and maybe something will be different. Right.
Well, and be careful for the traps, because there's going to be a lot of things that are going to tell you can't do it once you start. Right. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare your journey to some fucking TikTok meme or, something on Instagram as somebody who did something similar. You're not the same, right? Like, just focus on you, focus on what you can control, recognize that there's more than one way to skin a cat. The path that you take to achieve fitness or financial independence or whatever the goal is that you have set for yourself is going to be different than everybody else's, right? Because we all have different things that we have to overcome. We all have different obstacles that we have to face along that way, right? We all have fucking just random weird ass shit in life that happens that tries to pull us off track sometimes, right? And you've got to learn how to navigate it and to flex with it and stay on that track.
Well, to that point, man, that's where a program like the one that I've done is that was one of the huge benefits. Probably one of the biggest benefits that I got out of that was exactly what you're just talking about, where you look at your day and you sort of have to plan it out a little bit.
Yeah, you have to plan.
And if like let's take for example your situation today, or my situation where I told you I failed last Friday and just didn't get my exercise in. It's because I didn't plan my day out, or I had my day planned out and then something altered that plan and I didn't have a good backup plan. Actually, my backup plan even got kind of wrecked by somebody else's, but that's an excuse. And I had ample opportunity to make the decision I needed to make. I chose differently. But when you look at your day and it's jam packed full of stuff. That's what I'm saying, where you got to look at your day and look at your week and look at your month and find those points in those areas where you can work towards your goal, whether it's reading a book or saving your money. Say you want to save money for, I don't know, a trip that you guys want to take or whatever. You look at your day and you look at your week for those opportunities where maybe you can take your own lunch. You're not on a business trip. You're not, you got every creature comfort of your own house there available to you. You can make your own lunch and save a few bucks here or there. The bros want to go out on Friday night. And maybe you go out for an hour instead of 6 hours. There's these little concessions, and that's where we're talking about kind of trimming the fat off of the edges of your life a little bit and starting to get down to the meat and potatoes of it. Fitness is an easy one. I still do it. I still look at my calendar or look at my schedule for the next day and go, okay, well, I can fit my workout in there. That means I don't have to get up early. Some days I have back-to-back events, and I'm like, you know what? It means a 4:30 wake up. I'm going to get up at 4:30, go for my run, done. And now I can go about the rest of my day. But that's the self-discipline piece of it.
Yes.
Because you're a goal-oriented person, right? You
Yeah.
know that reaching your goal does not come with sitting in the chair watching NASCAR and eating Cheez-Its. Reaching your goal
and you're
comes
absolutely
with
right.
doing the fucking work.
Yeah, you got to do the work. And I'll throw out another platitude, and that's if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You have to have a plan. If you don't think through those things, something will invariably come up that's going to derail you in that process. And if you haven't planned things out, that's just going to be an unnecessary obstacle or hurdle for you to manage.
Well, like today, this is where I think, once you get to a certain point, you've been doing this for a while, you can kind of ad lib here and there, right?
Yeah, it becomes a little more flexible.
Well, I think you just get better at, you have enough experience to be able to fill in the gaps here and there, right? And today I took my gym clothes with me to work, and I walked out of work, and I had every intention of going to the gym and working out over there, but then I walked out and it's like 97 degrees, which ain't that hot for the end of June around here. I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna go run outside today. So I ran over to the track and I felt really good and banged out a couple of miles, and I was like, okay, well, this is going actually pretty well, and I'm thinking about this thing that I want to sign up for. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to break this run up into some different chunks here. So I did some other stuff along with the run, threw some more exercises in there, and that's just me kind of ad-libbing. I got a great workout in. Burned a shit ton of calories out in the sun, had my shirt off at the track, getting my vitamin D in. But it was kind of a made up thing. I broke away from what I'd said I was going to do last night, did something a little bit different, ended up getting a freaking banging workout out of it. But I think once you get to a point like what you're talking about, you get to this certain point where you can kind of go, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do something a little bit different today. Maybe I'll go off of the plan just for a day or maybe two or whatever. I used to do this when we go TDY. We would just going to Nellis, right? You go up to Nellis and you're kind of chilling and you're like, okay, well, I can go down to the gym, or I could run around this dumbass track out by the Red Flag building, or we can go hack Mount Charleston. That's badass. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're still getting something out of it, but now I got wind and a view, and it's awesome.
Now, there's ways definitely to manipulate the process to break up the monotony of it sometimes and have a little fun.
Well, I look at like what you were talking about. I look at the plan as more like, the lines on the side of the highway, the little TADATs, the little reflective bumps. That plan's going to keep you between the ditches. All right. Every now and then I might swerve over into the other lane, but I'm generally going to stay going towards the goal, towards the path, wherever my destination is. So, but
the important piece of that, though, is that the plan keeps you out of the ditches. And if you don't have a plan, you're going to end up in the fucking ditch. So you can be flexible with your plan, and you can pivot and do things. But if you don't have a plan to begin with, then you're behind the 8 ball to start the whole thing. So,
well, what happens if, you said that you're going to work out 6 days this week, take one rest day, and then Wednesday happens and you don't get your fucking workout in? Is that the end of the world? Fuck it. This plan is stupid. Goals are dumb.
Like Doc John talked about, right? 80% rule.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So, if you're hitting at 80%, dude, that's still 80% more than you were fucking doing before. And
That's
that's
right.
big, right? So you have to have a little flexibility and grace with yourself because things are going to come up that are going to fuck up your plan every once in a while. And that's what you but guess what? You learn how to be flexible and you learn how to pivot, and that's okay. That stuff happens, right? It's when you make the difference is when you make the choice, when you can still do what you're supposed to do and you make the choice not to. Not when so many things get out of control on a given day that prevent you from executing the plan that you thought you were going to have or the plan that you were going to be able to execute. The difference is when you choose to not do it even when you have the time or the capacity and just choose not to. That's the difference. So, yeah, dude, 80% rule from Doc John, that was a good one.
Yeah. Well, and, at the end of the day, man, we're not getting any younger. The guys
Mm-mm.
that was having some of these conversations with this weekend, they're our age. It's not like I was hanging out with a bunch of 20-year-olds. So, when I look around, when I start looking down the road, I mean, 20 years from now, I might not be able to do some of the stuff
Yeah.
that I want to do
Yep.
today. So there's no time like the present for sure, but the things that we're doing today are the things that are going to preserve that for the future.
That's true.
And we're going to have our mobility. We're going to have the muscular density and the bone density to be able to do some of those things, and not be that stooped over,
Yeah.
frail, fragile old
Using a
man.
walker.
Yeah, well, probably still use a walker because my knees are going to be blown to hell. But like when I look at a guy who's 50 and has been sedentary for 20 years, I'm like, hey, Mo, like it's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a magic pill that you can take and everything's going to be better tomorrow. So we need to generally, prioritize our health a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to be on a high horse or anything.
No, but we've
Because I
even
could tell
brought
you my
this up.
Cold Stone story about like
Yeah.
3,500 calories in a cup.
Well, and it's okay to have cheat days, right? Even talking to Ryan, right? If you're going to go
Yes.
on some kind of a hard uh diet plan, it's okay to have a cheat day, like, and to program that in because otherwise what you're asking yourself to do is just going to be unsustainable over time. But it also goes back to things that we've brought up research in the past. We've shared stories in the past of, men who hit their 50s and neglected their health because they were always too busy to do anything for themselves, trying to run up the ladder professionally, and all the impacts that they had in their life because they focused so much on their careers that they didn't take care um to foster and nurture relationships with the people that really were really important with them in their lives. Or they get into their 50s, man, and now they've got all these health issues like diabetes or you name it, but they've got all these things because they for they kind of for they neglected their health for so long in the pursuit of money or trying to run up a professional ladder or whatever, that now it's all caught up to them. And when you get to that stage, there's not a lot you can do you can lose weight and you can go on meds, but when you get those diagnoses, man, some of those things, they're like fucking luggage. You got it for the rest of your life, man. Like it's not going anywhere. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it
Some of them
becomes,
are, but with some good lifestyle changes, man, you can
yeah,
reverse a lot of
sure.
that.
Like
Like
cholesterol or heart
high
issues
cholesterol,
or,
even
yep,
even if you're borderline diabetic, you can walk that back a little
you
bit.
can walk it back
You
for
know,
sure.
yeah. Um, Now, if you keep doing what you're doing, it's just going to perpetuate.
Mm-hmm.
But gosh, I had a thought, and then that caught my attention for a
Sorry.
second. No, I'm not a smart guy, man. Oh, what I was going to say was like you and I, we have to be real careful, because that climbing that career ladder and being so devoted to your profession and all that stuff, we were there,
Yeah. And I didn't
100%.
always do it well.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that helped us though is our
I had a fat
job
cast season.
it required us to maintain some level of physical, mental, and emotional fitness, right? It was just the nature of what we did required us to maintain some of that, and
Yeah,
and
it did.
we both had periods in our lives where we definitely weren't the picture of health, because insert excuse here, but we still, when you compared us to maybe the general population, we still maintained a level above that, right? So to get on our soapbox and preach, I don't want to
No.
sound like it's like
Yeah.
we're being unfair,
No.
and you know
Dude, we've
it's
all
just,
gone. Yeah, you and I
yeah.
have gone through it. I
If
mean,
you're a used car salesman, man, you're not required to take a PT test every year. I'm just saying.
yeah. Yeah, well, and I went through a fat cast season in my life, man. When I went to weapons school, I think I gained probably 20, 25 pounds, because for 6 months, I'm stressed out, I'm getting no sleep, uh, you know, I'm drinking probably more Jack than water on a daily basis, you know, going through
Eating Burger
cans of
King, yeah.
Skull like they're nobody's business, eating Burger King or grabbing, a candy bar or jalapeno popcorn out of the because I don't have time for anything else. But when I look back at that time in my life, like I could have still gone to the gym. Like my anxiety and the stress that I allowed that program to put on me to feel like I wasn't prepared, even though I was, is what made me choose to do other things with my time than squeeze in a 30-minute run on a regular
Yeah.
basis, right? Um, or my my baseline depression because of what I was going through sometimes preventing me from getting out of bed, right? Where if I would have gotten out of bed and gone for a run, I probably would have felt better about myself in the moment. So we've
Yeah.
all been there, and then like when I got to the spikes, there was a lot of work to do and I prioritized doing that work when I could have easily, gotten back into the gym and started losing that weight and been more disciplined with my diet, but I made all those excuses as to why I couldn't. And they were fucking bullshit. They were just excuses. That's all they were. So,
Well, and you hit on it there. The irony of that whole thing is, if you would have taken that 30 minutes out for a little self-care, you
yeah,
probably would have been better off
I probably would have
than
captured some fucking
spending another
perspective
30
again.
minutes where you're facing the 3-1. Yeah.
Yeah, or my
Um,
face in my pillow going, why did I do this to
yeah.
myself?
But we've all been there, man, and
Yeah.
you think like, this is the most important thing in my life, and I have to give this thing 20 hours of my day every day for X amount of time, when in reality, man, you you probably deserve a little bit of a break. You
Yeah, well,
deserve a walk around the neighborhood. You deserve, go for a drive with the windows down and listen to some country music for a little bit. Just divorce yourself from that. And trust me, man, I take my medicine on this shit, right? I get bogged down on something that I'm working on in here, and I can feel that I'm starting to get frustrated, or my fingers aren't working right, or I just can't get my thoughts straight. I lock my computer, put my earbuds in, walk out the fucking door, go for like a
yeah.
30-45 minute walk, and I come back and I'm like, it's so much clarity. It's sit down and read a book for 20 minutes, just something to clear your palate, cleanse the plate a little bit, and then start piling the shit back on slowly.
Yeah, it just goes back to balance, right, man? Just try to find balance where you
Yeah.
can. And don't be afraid to prioritize your own health, your own mental health, if that's necessary, amidst all the other shit that's going on around you.
Yeah. I'm a big fan
There's
of
nothing
naps
wrong with that.
too. I'm a
Yeah,
big
I'm not
fan
a
of
napper.
naps. Oh God, I can nail it. I can nap. I can fucking nap.
I can't nap at all.
Champion napper. If napping was a sport, I'd have a Super Bowl ring, man.
Yeah, I wish I
That's
could.
my favorite thing, is to work early shift, come home, take like a 15-minute power nap, dude. It's like I got a whole new day ahead of me. It's great. Cool, man. Well, I was really encouraged. This sounded like, I think this episode, at least from my perspective, sounded like a lot of browbeating and preaching, but I was really encouraged when this guy approached me and talked to me, because I could just tell. And I slept on it. I didn't say anything that night. I kind of slept on it, and then I went and found him the next day. But something just told me, like, he's in a spot right now in his life where he needs a different group around him. He needed some different support. He needed to have some different conversations. And I'm
Yeah,
really looking forward to engaging with him this week. And you know what? It may turn out to be nothing. And that's okay. If
yeah.
that's
Well,
how it moves forward, then
it's not your choice,
great.
anyways.
It's not, and
Yeah,
because I'm
it's
going to
his.
keep doing what I'm doing, and
Yeah,
hopefully I can inspire some other people, but I really think that it's going to be positive, man. And I look forward to the next time I get to see him,
Yeah.
And some of the changes that he gets to make. Because
yeah, that's exciting, bro.
It's never too late. It's never too late. He's a good dude and he deserves it. I really hope that he's willing to put in the effort.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah. Cool, man. You got anything else?
I don't.
All right. Be the change.
Be the one.
Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number 1, change and the number 1.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.